What's up people, welcome to another Arcane afternoon. It's been about a year since I made the last Rogue Gears video. Since then a lot of new gears have been released, like the level 86 Arcane blood pieces and also the force weapons. We also got new pets like the Heroic Siege part egg, and we also got a lot of new jewels. So in this video I will be showing you all of the best gears that you can have right now, and I will also show you my personal gears and loadouts as well as my awakenings that I have as the #1 rogue for the past like 4 years now. So without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. The first thing you need is you need all 8 hotbars. Even 8 hotbars nowadays is kind of too little. We need more hotbars. With the release of the boss ultimate, we kind of only have 7 hotbars left because the boss ultimate takes up one of the slots. You can see here that one of the developers already announced that there will be a new boss ultimate pretty soon. And when that boss ultimate gets released, it will take up another slot from your hotbar, so you will be left with only 6 hotbars, which is way too little. We kind of have to get another row of hotbars so that we have 12 hotbars, otherwise we will have way too little hotbars. We don't know yet if you will be able to use both hotbars at the same time, or if they will be on cooldown if you use one of them, but regardless you will have to have both of them on the hotbar because you will need them for different scenarios and you always have to be ready to be able to use them. But if you think about it, right now we have 8 hotbars if 2 of them go away for boss ultimates. And now I will count up some common things that you put on your hotbar. For example, 1, 2 or even 3 proc sets, then you need a 7 beast set, then you need your gold set, you need a speed set, you need a damage set, you need maybe a damage and speed set combined, you need a gold pad, a damage pad, arguably a pad to clear mobs or for events and certain scenarios. And all of these were probably already 12, and these are like the most common ones. There's so many more that I use and need for more specific scenarios. So the current 8 hotbars is way too little, and you have to have 8 if you don't have 8 right now. Otherwise you will always struggle in certain scenarios because you won't be able to reach the sets that you currently need. Anyways, now let's have a look at all of the best gears that you can currently have. So the first set that you need is your proc set. This used to be 2 different sets where basically only the weapon was different. 1 proc set for mobs and 1 proc set for bosses. This has changed a bit with the most recent blood weapons, at least for warriors and mages, but for rogues it has stayed the same. So for mobs you want to use the Kraken daggers or the blood daggers. They're both pretty similar. The blood daggers do a little bit more damage. I think you get like 100 dex more with the blood dagger proc compared to the Kraken dagger proc, but 100 dex is not that big of a difference. And that's already the only benefit you get from the blood daggers. There's actually a lot of scenarios where the Kraken daggers are better than the blood daggers. First of all, the Kraken daggers are a lot cheaper than the blood daggers. You can see the Kraken daggers are 50 million and the blood daggers are about 500 million, so they're 10 times cheaper than the blood daggers. On top of that, with the Kraken dagger proc you get 75% speed stacking. You get 50% from the proc and you get 25% with the Kraken belt. With the blood daggers you get 0%. With the Kraken dagger proc you also get 75% damage reduction stacking. With the blood daggers you get 0% damage reduction stacking. With the Kraken daggers, targets caught in the sea sword tsunami aura lose 75% of their armor. This means if a mob or a boss has armor, you will actually do a lot more damage with the Kraken daggers compared to the blood daggers. Most of the mobs and bosses don't have any armor in the game, but if they do, then the Kraken daggers will do way more damage than the blood daggers. And lastly, with the Kraken daggers, you can proc them with any damage that you do. With any skill you use, knock shot, shadow shot, with anything you can proc them. With the blood daggers, you have to charge them up and then release, which takes about 4 seconds. And then only your blood daggers will be procced. All of your other gears will not be procced. With the crack daggers, you can immediately use skills and proc everything at the same time. And you will also be able to proc everything faster than with the blood daggers. So there's actually a lot of scenarios where the Kraken daggers are better than the blood daggers. The only thing blood daggers are better than the crack daggers is that they give a little bit more damage, as long as the target does not have any armor. So the blood daggers are honestly not really good. And especially if you consider that mages got the blood staff Staff, possibly the most OP item of all time. And warriors got the Blood Daggers, which is also incredibly broken. If you consider that, it makes it a lot worse for rogues. But anyways, this is the proc for mobs, and for bosses you want to use the Kraken Bow. Here you also don't want to use the Blood Bow. The Kraken Bow actually does a lot more damage than the Blood Bow, it's not close. The Kraken Bow does a lot more damage, a lot faster than the Blood Bow. The Blood Bow is completely useless. There's no scenario, nothing in the game where the Blood Bow is useful. And this is not because the Kraken Bow is that broken, it's actually just because the Blood Bow is that shit. The Kraken Bow already is super weak compared to warriors and mages, and the Blood Bow is just that much worse than the Kraken Bow. So for mobs you use the Kraken Daggers or Blood Daggers, and for bosses use the Kraken Bow. And for your damage set you will use the Blood Chakrams, and that's how all of the 3 different weapon types are supposed to be. But this has changed recently for warriors and mages. Mages with the Blood Staff now use the Blood Staff for mobs, that's how it's supposed to be. Mages are supposed to use the Blood Gun to proc for bosses, but there, for bosses you also use the Blood Staff. And on your damage set, mages are supposed to use the Blood Orb or the Force or Rusk gun. On the damage set you also use the Blood Staff, so use this one weapon for everything, that's how broken the item is. And it's the same thing for warriors, you use the Blood Daggers on your damage set, on your boss proc set, and you can also use it for your mob proc set. But as a warrior it doesn't actually matter what weapon you use, there's endless weapons that are better than rogues. You can use a level 81 Zodiac Spirit Aegis and do like 100 times more single target damage than me as the #1 rogue with the best gears in the game. And keep in mind the Zodiac Aegis is a area damage weapon proc, and it's supposed to be for mobs, and it does that much more single target damage than me as a rogue. There's like 20 different weapons warriors can use and do more single target than me. And don't forget, single target damage is the only thing rogues are good at, and still rogues are the worst at single target damage. But anyways, now let's continue with the rest of the gears. For the helmet, you can use the Blood Helmet. The proc is pretty good. You can see my awakening is also really good. I got 6% all, 175 armor, 1.5% dex. By the way, the awakenings on your proc set don't matter. That's why I didn't show you the awakenings. It doesn't matter because you don't do any damage on your proc set. You will do all of your damage on your damage set, and that's why the awakenings are important. That's why I also got a really good awakening here, because I used this item on my damage set. But of course you want to use full finesse jewels. Don't mind the jewels that are on here right now. But again, I got 6% all, 175 armor, 1.5% dex. That's about a perfect awakening, and it doesn't really get better than this. But with the Blood Helmet proc you get 100% movement speed, but it's not stacking. You also get 30% haste, which is really good, and you get 100% armor, which is really good, but most likely you will hit the armor cap, so it's not as good as it seems. But also the proc is 10 seconds, which is pretty long, and the cooldown is 20 seconds, which is pretty short. The Blood Helmet is overall the best helmet you can use, but as a warrior you can also use the Kraken Helmet. The Kraken Helmet proc is pretty good for warriors because it buffs your ultimate skill charge rate by 25, and if you use a Kraken Ring it buffs it to 35%. This is obviously very good for warriors because warriors get God mode with their ultimate, so you might want to use the Kraken Helmet instead of the Blood Helmet as a warrior. For the armor, you can use the Blood Armor, or you can also use the Kraken Armor. This is pretty similar to the Kraken Daggers and Blood Daggers. The Blood Armor does a little bit more damage. I think you get 100 primer stat more, the same as the Blood Daggers and Kraken Daggers. So you get 100 primer stat more, which is a little bit of damage. Also, my awakening is 7% dex and 400 health. But with the Kraken Armor proc, you also get 100% armor, 100% movement speed, and 30% haste. And these buffs can be, in some scenario, better than the Blood Armor proc. The haste and the armor can be very nice and can be better than the Blood Armor. And if you consider that the Kraken Armor should be quite a bit cheaper than the Blood Armor, it's at 45 million and the Blood Armor is at 170 million. So less than 3 times the price. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a Kraken Armor over a Blood Armor. It might even be better than the Blood Armor. Now for the belt, here you obviously also don't want to use the Blood Belt because the Blood Belt proc is useless. Here you want to use the Kraken Belt because with the Kraken Belt If you use a Kraken weapon, you want to use the Kraken belt because it buffs your Kraken weapon's proc. But even if you don't have a Kraken weapon, you can still proc 25% elite damage, which is a lot better than getting nothing from the blood belt. So far, there's literally not a single blood item that you need. At least as rogue. As warrior, you need the blood Aegis and the blood staff, obviously. For the ring, we're of course also not using the latest Arcane level 86 blood ring for 30 million gold, because we can just use this level 81 mythic ring that was released like 5 years ago, and it costs about 100,000 gold, and it gives you a lot more damage than the blood ring. With this 100,000 gold mythic ring that was released 5 years ago, you get 30% XP gain, 25% luck, but most importantly you get 20% damage stacking for 12 seconds, which is a lot better than the blood ring proc. And as a warrior, you can again consider using the Kraken ring, so you can charge your ultimate even faster. Now for the amulet, the blood amulet proc is actually pretty good, but we don't want to use it on our proc set. We want to use it on our damage set and then proc it on the damage set. On the proc set, it's very important that you use any amulet that has no proc. For example, you can just use your venal amulet because it has no proc. It's very important that you don't proc any amulet, because if you proc your amulet, you won't be able to proc your blood amulet on your damage set later. And it's very important that you can proc your blood amulet because it does a lot of damage. Next up is the artifact, and here you want to use the blood artifact. This is the only blood item that you actually really need, at least as a rogue. These are the awakenings I had on my blood artifact, which I recently sold. I had 7% dex plus 5 damage, which is actually better than 8% dex. And it also has 3 legend stones. These are some of the new jewels in the game, and I'm pretty sure this is the best damage jewel in the game currently. The blood artifact proc is just super strong to clear mobs, especially as a rogue, because we don't have any mob clear, but it also does a lot of single target damage. The blood artifact is a must-have and pretty much the only OP blood item. Mages and warriors both got 2 of the most broken weapons of all time each this year, with the blood staff, the blood orb, the blood Aegis, and the blood chainsword. If we go back in time a little bit, we can see warriors have like 10 times more single target damage with like at least 10 different sets as me, the best rogue. They have by far the best multi-target area damage mob clear with Croc Aegis, etc. Warriors have by far like a trillion times better ultimate with Rage and Immortal ults, basically unlimited damage and HP. Warriors are by far the tankiest class. They are also the cheapest class. They have OP skills, for example 5-second invincibility. Just with their skills they hit easily 100% crit chance and crazy damage with, for example, Vengeance. They have Taunt as only class, by far best pull weapons, best variety of gear sets, weapons to use, many older gears as well, so many useful gears, and much more. In every aspect of the game, warriors are by far the best. And keep in mind, this was early this year, around January. Then we got the blood orb, the blood chainsword, and the blood chakrams. And with those, warriors and mages got about a 55% total damage buff compared to rogues. Total damage meaning after all procs, so actual total damage buff. So even though warriors were by far the best class already, they got a 55% total damage buff compared to rogues. That mages also got the buff is okay because they are obviously also not that strong. They're pretty similar to rogues. But warriors were already so insanely broken and they got a 55% total damage buff on top of that. And it gets a lot worse because recently warriors got the blood Aegis and mages got the blood staff. The blood staff might be the most broken item of all time. It's just godlike. You have the best mob gear, best single target damage, best proc, and warriors get the blood Aegis on top of that. And I can guarantee you, even if I was level 101 right now with level 101 Arcane gears, warriors would still be a lot stronger than me. But anyways, let's get back to the gear. So the blood artifact is like the only thing you really have to have as a rogue. But because mages and warriors also have it, it doesn't really give you any advantage compared to the other classes. And lastly, for the bracelet, we of course also don't want to use the blood bracelet. Why should we use the latest level 86 Arcane gear if we can just use a level 81 Arcane piece? My awakening is 8% dex, 3% armor. And with the proc you get 20% crit damage and 15% armor for 10 seconds. It's a really good proc. So that was the first set that you need, the proc set. Next up you need a 7B set. 7 beast means that you need 6 beast pieces plus a beast weapon. And you need the 7 beast set to get the set proc from the beast set. The set proc gives you a 50% damage reduction stacking, and it also gives you good damage. And especially as a rogue or a mage, you really need the 7 beast set. With the 7 beast set proc, you can survive so much more. And if we didn't have this proc, we would die so quickly. Us mages and rogues already die so quickly, but if we didn't have this proc, we would die even faster. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the devs remove the 7 beast set in the near future just to nerf rogues and mages even more and buff warriors again. Next up is your damage set, and this is one of the most important sets to have. The most important thing is that where it says damage here at 91,500, you want this number to be as high as possible without any proc. So don't proc anything, and you just want this number as high as possible. As rogues, you want to use the blood chakrams. If you can, you should also ascend the blood chakrams, but then they're not tradable anymore, but they will do more damage. And you should try to get a 15% crit damage awake on them. If you're lucky, you will get something else with the 15 crit damage. I've seen people with like 25% or even 30% crit damage awake, which is super OP. I also have some really nice jewels on here, but I will talk about them after the gears. Then I'm using a 3 out of 3 blood set, and I'm also using a 3 out of 3 B set. So I'm combining a 3 out of 3 B set with a 3 out of 3 blood set. And I also used an immortal bracelet because it gives you 15% dex, which is by far the best out of all bracelets. The awakening on my helmet you already saw before. It's 6% all, 1.5% dex and 175 armor. On my beast armor I have 7% dex, 5% armor. My beast belt I currently don't have on me, but it has an 8% dex awakening. On my beast ring I have a 6% all awakening. On my blood amulet I have an 8% dex awakening. My artifact you also already saw, it has 7% dex, 5 damage and 3 legend stones. And on my immortal bracelet I have 8% dex and 3% armor. All of these awakenings are pretty perfect. The only awakenings that could be a little bit better is the 6% all and the ascended blood chakram awakening with 15% crit damage. It could be a little bit better, but I don't want to lose gold trying to get a slightly better awakening. Next up is your speed set, and on my speed set I only have movement speed awakes. It's just for maximum speed so I can run around faster in towns but also on maps to cover more distance more quickly. And I'm using a Sour set. The set bonus gives you 20% movement speed. My Piscis daggers have 25% movement speed. My Sour's helmet has 30%. My Sour's armor has 33%. My Sour's belt has 30% movement speed. My momentum bracelet has 23% movement speed awake, but it also has 20% movement speed as a passive. Then I have a 30% movement speed beast artifact, which I awaked myself in one of my awakening videos. And this artifact also has 15% passive movement speed. Then I have a flame set. The amulet has a 20% movement speed awake, and the ring has a 19% movement speed awake. On top of that, the flame set also gives you 140% movement speed stacking as a set bonus. And to me, having a good movement speed set is very important. It just makes the game a lot more enjoyable. You can type /stats and then speed, and you will see your current speed. You see it says 6.6x. The most important thing is that you get above 5x speed, and then you're already super fast, and after that it doesn't really make any difference anymore. Anyways, let's continue with the gears. The next set that you can use is a mix of the damage set and the speed set. This has become a very common set that people use. With this set you have good damage, but you will also have good speed with it. So you're not too slow, but you also don't have too little damage to clear, for example, mobs in Indigo Caverns or to clear event maps. You basically just take your damage set and then swap out your ring and amulet for your speed set. So currently I have an Ablaze set on me, and you can just call the set a speed damage, for example, when you save the loadout. If you want even more speed, you can swap out even more pieces. For example, you can swap out the belt. And you could also use your momentum bracelet if you need more speed. So now we have 4 movement speed items, but we also have 4 damage pieces And we still have the 3 out of 3 blood set buff. And this is one example of the damage speed sets that you can use. Next up is your gold loot set. On your gold loot set, you just want maximum gold loot. If I equip my gold loot set and my gold loot pad and then type /stats and then gold, you can see I have 1240% gold loot, which is actually a lot because I don't farm gold at all. You want maximum gold loot on your gold loot set, but you also want some damage so you can still kill bosses when they're very low HP. We have all had that situation where everyone swaps to the gold loot set a little bit too early and nobody has damage on their gold loot set, and then you can't kill the boss and you lose so much time there. And time is also gold. The faster you can clear maps, the more gold you will make. So it's not just how much gold loot you have, but also how fast you are. So it's very important that you also have some damage on your gold loot set. And for me, I'm doing that by using a snow chakram, which have pretty good damage. And they also have 20% boss damage as a passive. And I'm also using a 3 out of 3 beast set, which give you a pretty good damage buff with 35% dexterity, 30% damage, stacking, and 50% haste, but also give you 30% health. Now for the awakenings and jewels, my snow chakrams have 210% gold loot awakening plus 25% passive and 50% from the gold maker stones. My beast helmet has 50% gold loot. My beast armor also has 50% gold loot. My venal belt has 80% gold loot. My venal ring has 80% gold loot, and my venal amulet has 90% gold loot. For the artifact, I recommend the death artifact. The death artifact gives you 50% gold loot and 50% luck passive, which is very useful. And it's also pretty easy to get high gold loot awakenings on here because it's arcane and you have 4 different awakenings. And lastly, I'm using a beast bracelet with 100% gold loot to complete the 3 out of 3 beast set. These are all my gears, and these are also all the gears that you need. You don't need any other gears. Now let's have a look at all of the pets that you need. First, your damage pet. This is actually my boss damage pet. For the passive, you can use Arcanite Sapphire, but you can also use the new pet Heroic Siege Part. But Heroic Siege Part is very expensive. It's around 700 million by now. For the happiness bonus for bosses, you have to use Hero Gourd Weaver. It's by far the best happiness bonus for bosses. It gives you 70 primary, 30 dex, 25% crit damage, 30% armor stacking, 30% damage stacking, 30% boss damage, and 20% speed stacking. And for the Arcane ability, you have to use Heroic Siege Part. It's by far the best AA for bosses, but it's so expensive that pretty much nobody can afford it at this point. As I said, it's around 700 million. I bought it for like 130 million. I actually bought 10 of them for 130 million. I made a few billion profit. I already sold 8 of them by now. For the price that I got it, it's actually super cheap, but if you don't have the egg yet, I don't know if it's really worth it to get the egg. Either you buy it now or you wait until Easter and then hope that the new Xavier event will drop the egg there. But for anyone who doesn't know what Heroic Siege Part does, let me equip the pet and then use the AA quickly. You can see it has an area effect, and every target in this area now has 50% increased damage taken and do 50% damage less for 8 seconds. But the more important thing is the 50% increased damage taken. Basically, you do 50% total damage more on any target in the range. So you do 50% total damage more on bosses, and if you're in a party, your teammates also do 50% total damage more. The AA is super OP. If you cannot afford Heroic Siege Part, you can use Vermilius. Vermilius is pretty cheap, and it's the second best boss ability. It costs 8 million gold. The Arcane ability is pretty good, but compared to Siege Part, it's really horrible. Next up is my gold loot pet. I'm using Arcanite Chester. The passive boosts my gold loot by 25%. With the happiness bonus, I get 100% from the new Arachne egg. And with the AA, I'm using Prisma, which also boosts my gold loot by 50%. The Arachne egg was released pretty recently, and basically every player in this game got this egg for free. Everyone got it, and it should still be super cheap after like half a year. You can see it's actually even cheaper than it was when it came out. I also predicted this in the Investment Academy. Even though the happiness bonus is so OP, it's still not a good invest because the supply is just that massive of the egg. That's why I didn't invest in the egg, and it turns out I was right. It even went down in price after half a year. I'm sure a lot of people have lost a lot of gold on this invest, But what's interesting about this egg is that before Arachne was out, most people had like 50, 60% or 75% gold loot as a happiness bonus. And then the developers decided, okay, now let's give everyone 100% gold loot as a happiness bonus for free. I think it would have been a lot better for the developers if they had just put it in the store and then sold it for like 2000 platinum. So many people would have bought it and they would have made a lot of money. I don't know why they gave it everyone for free. The fact they even gave it everyone for free kind of tells us that they don't really care about inflation. But just now we got the new level 91 expansion and we could see all of the gold loot was nerfed from all maps. And now you pretty much can't get any gold in any map. It kind of seems like the developers don't know what they're actually doing. Like one day they're giving everyone 100% gold loot for free. The next day they're nerfing every gold loot map in the entire game. I want to quickly talk about the gold loot thing because it's a big topic right now. You need to know that inflation is actually a good thing, especially for a game. This is not real life where the best thing is that you have like 3% inflation. This is a game. Having like 20-30% inflation a year is actually not that bad for a video game. It has the economy thriving. People who buy platinum are always encouraged to buy platinum. So when you have such a big inflation constantly, it's always right now the best moment to buy platinum because prices are always at its peak. This makes people spend more money on the game. Now that they nerfed all of the gold loot in the game, prices are dropping for everything. We have a deflation even. This discourages plat buyers to buy platinum because prices are dropping. But that's not the only issue we get from the gold loot nerf. The next issue is that you need to know that about 80% of the total playing time in Arcane Legends is people farming gold in gold loot maps. And all of that is gone now. The developers kind of killed their own game by that. The game is losing a lot of its players right now, which also means they're losing a lot of people who buy platinum. But also the plat buyers who stay in the game are also on top of that discouraged to buy platinum because nobody wants to buy platinum in a game that's dying very quickly right now and is losing players very fast. This means the game will make a lot less money in the near future. And on top of that, not only the gold loot farmers are quitting the game, but also the people who trade and invest in items. They also rely on the gold loot farmers because now with the prices dropping, all these investors are also losing gold, right? And I'm sure quite a few investors are also leaving the game. Overall, the situation is very bad. The developers will have to buff the gold drops from the new maps, or at least temporarily maybe revert the gold loot nerfs from the older maps. Keep in mind, the deflation is actually good for people who are already super rich like me. But I'm still fighting for the game and for the players because I don't want the game to die, right? This deflation is good for me because this means that I will stay rich now and all of the people who don't have any gold, they will not be able to make any gold. But even I am saying that they need to bring gold loot back because that's what keeps the game alive. So anyways, now let's quickly talk about jewels. There's a lot of new jewels in the game that are actually very strong. First of all, these new Goblin Legend Stones, they give 9 primary stat, 3% crit damage and 3 damage. You can have 3 of them on your set. They were around 100 million gold when they came out. They might cost quite a bit more now. The next OP jewels is the Vimelda Tower Stone. This is a completely new jewel. It gives you 11 primary stat but also 1.75% crit damage. Then the Death Weaver Siphon Stone, which is known as the best jewel in the game. It gives you 10 all stats, 1.25% crit damage and also 2% leech. And with this leech, you're pretty much always at maximum health, which is super OP. It would also be very nice if we got another jewel just like the Death Weaver Siphon Stone, which gives you leech but for mana, so we're also full at mana all the time. Then we have the Virmir Castle Stone. It gives you 10 primary stat, 2.5% crit damage and 4 damage. We also got the Abathon Tower Stone, which gives you 11 primary stat and 2.5 damage. Then we have the Boss Breaker Jewel, which gives you 1 of all stats and 5% boss damage. Then we have the Arcane Avenger Jewel, which gives you 2 damage and 5% boss damage. Then obviously you can use Corrupted Jewels or you can use Flawless Jewels, they're also still pretty good. With the level 91 expansion you can also craft Corrupted Jewels now. You need 6 Shadowed Corrupted Jewels and a recipe. I don't know yet where you can get the recipe from. And the Shadowed Jewels you can get from the bosses apparently, from the new maps. Maybe you can get the recipe in the locked crates, that might be one of the ways, but I'm not quite sure, maybe not. Some other jewels, you can see a Sunstrike Stone for 5 solar damage. This is the new elemental type, just like nature, cosmic and shadow damage. You also get one with 5% solar resist, but these are very bad obviously. And you can get one with 1% boss damage and 1% gold loot and Dune Veil, but this also sounds very bad. But we got new jewels better than the corrupted jewels, and they're called radiant jewels. You cannot craft them just like you weren't able to craft corrupted jewels. They will probably be a top 10 leaderboard reward at events. And the only good ones that we need are the primary stat ones. And you get, with the radiant finesse jewel, you get 5% dex, which is super OP. And with the other ones, you get 5% strength and 5% intelligence. If I had to guess, they would probably be around 500 million gold. And considering they are the only tradable leaderboard item that you get from leaderboards now, this means it might be worth it for farmers to do leaderboards now, because you don't get any gold anymore by gold loot farming. You might as well just farm events and get these jewels and sell them for 500 million gold, maybe even for more than 500 million gold. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that one thing the developers should have done is they should have increased the gold cap to 10 billion gold with the level 91 expansion. Either increase the gold cap to 10 billion gold, or what they could have done is bring a new gold currency, and basically you can exchange the old gold currency for the new gold currency 10 to 1, and that would also fix the inflation. But instead they just nerfed all of the gold loot, all the maps on the entire map, and now they killed the game. So they made the worst decision they could have made, unfortunately, but they can easily fix the problem. Another thing while we're at it, if they buff gold loot maps again, is that one of the reasons I hate gold loot farming is that you have to remap every like 15 or 20 seconds. You go in Indigo and you run through it, and then you have to remap, and you every single time you're hit with this screen, this loading screen. And it's super annoying. Every 20 seconds you're hit with this. It's like a slap to the face. It's just super annoying to always go into this loading screen. And considering most of the playing time in Arcane Legends is from these gold loot maps, they could increase the time people farm in gold loot maps even more if they fix this loading screen thing. They could make a map where you don't have to remap and where you can just constantly play. For example, Elite Zodia's Gates, you could play for hours straight and you would never have to remap, and it was so much more convenient and so much nicer, and time would fly like crazy. Like 1 or 2 hours would pass so quickly. And in Indigo, because I have to remap every 15 seconds, I'm already done with it after like 4 minutes. Like I'm already sick of it. And this is like a mind trick, for example, casinos do in Las Vegas, where they try so many tricks that customers don't make any conscious decisions. For example, they don't have like straight turns there. They also mess with like the oxygen in the air, so you're just kind of just in the flow state the whole time. But in short, what the developers should do is buff the gold loot, obviously in Dune Veil, by a lot, by like 3x. They could also consider reverting the gold loot nerfs from Zodia's and Elderwoods. I'm not sure if that was the right move to just nerf them to the ground from one day to another, and now you cannot play these maps at all anymore. So fix gold loot, bring a new map like Eats a G, a wave map that you can farm gold loot in, where you can play literally 4 hours straight and farm there. At best, increase the gold cap to 10 billion, or bring a new currency where you can just exchange it to the new currency by like 10 to 1. And another thing that was released a few months ago was this auction delay. So you put an item in the auction, right? Let's put this mine jewel here. And you can see there's a delay. I cannot sell again. It takes 3 to 5 seconds. And this is actually pretty similar to this conscious decision thing. It just destroys the flow of the game, you know? It's just so annoying, and it just makes me want to quit the game. Like, it's so annoying. Fix the auction delay, that there's no delay anymore. The reason the auction delay was added to the game is actually because of a post on the forum where you said, please add different sections of bulk items and single items. Some people with tons of Oxods always dump the price with the single items in many rows, causing drop of the price. And because of this post, this auction delay was added to the game. And you can see because of this Monarchy guy, we got the 3-second cooldown in the auction. He made a comment, possible solution, add a 3-second cooldown to auction. As an example, I list something at auction, I have to wait 3 seconds to list another things. And because of this stupid comment, we got this auction delay that everyone hates. What's even better is that you can see I commented right below Monarchy. You can see I'm banned. And I explained why this auction delay would be a bad thing to add to the game. So I even warned the developers that it would be a bad idea. So my comment was, there's a base tax fee of 100 gold besides the 5%, which most players aren't aware of. This helps making players sell items in bigger stacks rather than selling them one by one. So what this means is if you put an item in the auction, you can see it goes up by 5 gold for the 5%, but you also pay 100 gold as a base tax fee for 12 hours. We can also do 1 gold and you can see it better. So for 1 gold, it's base tax, 100 gold for 12 hours, 250 for 1 day, and 500 gold for 3 days. Problem is that this value has not changed since the game came out. 12 years ago, this 100 gold was actually a lot of gold. So it was actually expensive to put items in the auction because the base tax fee was very high. Nowadays, we only care about the 5% tax fee, but nobody cares about this anymore because it's so little, because it hasn't changed. So now let's go back to my comment. And for some context, this thread was made during the Easter event where people were dumping eggs like red eggs, green eggs, blue eggs, singular ones in auction, like 100 at a time, to just dump the price super low, and then the other peoples would have to sell their many eggs for cheaper because otherwise people wouldn't buy them. So I said, you're referring to players dumping green eggs, blue eggs as single ones into auction for lower prices. The players are too lazy to buy the single ones, so the price goes lower as players have to sell their eggs below the single one's price. This is a very specific problem, pretty much only happening in rare scenarios like the Easter event. So it's not a big problem and doesn't necessarily need a change. What the devs could do is increase the base tax fee to, let's say, 150 or 200 gold. This is obviously too low, but it's about the idea. So if they increase the base tax fee, let's say to 1,000 gold or 5,000 gold or 10,000 gold, people would not dump, for example, red eggs for like 2,000 gold or whatever the price was en masse, because they would pay like 10,000 gold, 5,000 gold base tax fee every single time. And then it wouldn't be worth it for them anymore because they're doing that to then later buy the bulk eggs for cheaper. So that's the whole idea, and that's what the developers should have done. They should increase the base tax fee and not add the auction delay, but it turned out we got the auction delay and now everyone in the entire game is annoyed by it. I even commented on the auction delay and I said a cooldown would be pretty annoying regarding the solution above, just increasing the base tax fee will solve the issue. So I gave the developers the perfect formula, but the developers are known to do the opposite of what I'm saying. It doesn't matter if it hurts the game. But anyways, this is it with the video. Hopefully the developers will fix the gold loot and hopefully warriors will buff a little bit more and rogues get another nerf, because rogues are honestly a little bit too strong right now. Warriors are a little bit too weak, so hopefully they get some more buffs in the future, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.